If you Google average net worth by age, you're going to get an answer within about a half a second. You will also get 4 or 5 different answers, all confidently presented as the definitive number, often from articles published the exact same year. But here's the strange part. Almost all of them are citing the exact same source, the exact same government survey, often the exact same year of data, and they still don't agree with each other. And here's why this matters more than a mildly annoying Google search. People use these numbers to judge whether they're behind, on track, or ahead of where they should be financially, often triggering real anxiety over a benchmark that, it turns out, isn't nearly as fixed or objective as it looks. This isn't a story about anyone lying to you. It's a story about how one slow-moving government survey gets sliced, reprocessed, and republished by dozens of independent sites, each making a few small, reasonable-sounding choices along the way, and how those small choices quietly add up to wildly different headline numbers, all technically correct. Nearly every average net worth by age article, video, or calculator ultimately traces back to a single source. The Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, widely regarded as the gold standard for household wealth data in America. Every 3 years, the Fed interviews thousands of households in detail about everything they own and everything they owe. The most recently completed editions cover 2022, released in the October of 2023. The Fed began its next survey in early 2025, with results not expected until late 2026. That single fact already explains something odd you may have noticed. Articles and videos titled Average Net Worth by Age 2025 edition or 2026 edition are, in almost every case, still describing the same 2022 data, just republished under a fresher sounding year in the title. The underlying numbers haven't actually been updated, only the packaging has. Here's the single biggest reason 2 articles citing the identical 2022 survey can show you 2 wildly different average numbers. One is reporting the mean, and the other is reporting the median. And in wealth data, those 2 numbers behave nothing alike. The mean is the total number of every household added together divided by the number of households. The median is simply the households sitting exactly in the middle when you line every household up from the poorest to the richest. In the 2022 survey, the mean household net worth came out to roughly $1.06 million. The median, however, the actual middle household, was roughly $192,900. That's not a rounding difference. That's a gap of more than 5 times. And that gap has been widening for decades, not staying constant. In 1989, the mean was only about 4.1 times the median. By 2022, that ratio had stretched to roughly 5.5 times, a direct reflection of wealth becoming more concentrated at the top over that period, since a relatively small number of very wealthy households pull the mean upward without moving the median at all. Depending purely on which of these 2 numbers an article chooses to headline, a completely legitimate, well-documented statistic either way, you get a true average that looks either comfortably high or realistically modest from the exact same underlying data set. Even once you settle on mean versus median, there's a second layer of disagreement hiding underneath: how the age groups themselves get sliced. The Federal Reserve's own official tables use one set of age brackets. Many independent finance sites and calculators pull the raw microdata behind the survey and re-slice it into their own custom bands, sometimes 5-year windows instead of 10-year windows, sometimes different cutoff ages entirely. That means 2 sites can both honestly cite the 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances and still show you different numbers for someone exactly your age, purely because one grouped ages 30 to 34 together and another grouped 25 to 34 together. Neither is wrong. They're just answering a very slightly different question than the one you assumed you were asking. And yet, there's a third, quieter source of confusion, and it's less about the data and more about what people assume the number means. The Federal Reserve's net worth figure includes everything: home equity, retirement accounts, business ownership, vehicles, investment accounts, minus all debts. It's a genuinely comprehensive whole household number. Plenty of people comparing themselves against these charts are mentally picturing something much narrower: their checking and savings account balance, or maybe their 401k. When your instinctive mental number is what's sitting in my bank app, and the benchmarks you're comparing it to are everything you technically own minus everything you owe, of course the comparison feels discouraging. It's not that you're behind, it's that you're quietly comparing 2 different definitions of the same word. Here's the reframe worth sitting with. None of this is really a story about bad data or deliberately misleading content or a number secretly being fabricated somewhere. It's a story about how much interpretation happens after good data is collected and before it ever reaches you as a clean, confident-sounding headline. Mean or median, 10-year bands or 5-year bands, comprehensive net worth or narrow savings, the fresh-sounding 2026 edition title or the accurately labeled 2022 data. Every single one of these is a reasonable, defensible choice an individual site or creator can make, and every one of them changes the final number you see, sometimes dramatically, without anyone doing anything dishonest at all. The confusing part isn't the survey, it's that dozens of independent outlets are allowed to make their own small, invisible methodology choices, and almost none of them show you which choices they made. The plain English lesson here is less about net worth specifically and more about how to read any statistic that gets endlessly recirculated online. When a number like average net worth gets repeated across hundreds of sites, it starts to feel like an objective fact of nature. In reality, it's the output of a specific survey filtered through a specific set of editorial choices and republished by people who mostly aren't showing you their work. None of that means the underlying Federal Reserve data is untrustworthy. It's generally one of the most rigorous wealth surveys that exists. It means that the confident-sounding headline number sitting on top of it has usually been shaped by choices you never got to see. Next time a benchmark like this makes you feel behind, the more useful question isn't, how do I compare? It's, which number from which year defined which way am I actually looking at? If this video made you want to stop guessing which chart applies to you and just track your own number clearly, that's a much more useful exercise than comparing yourself to 5 different internet averages. I use Empower to help me see my own full net worth in one place, and I've included a link below if you want to see why. As always, not financial advice, just financial history. We'll see you next time.